7 p.m. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor using your tabulators, please. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no community presentations. We have no delegations. Move on to the consent agenda. Anyone have any comments or questions, or anyone want to move anything from the consent agenda? That's C1, C2, C3, C4. Councillor Gardner? Thank you. If I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Gallo. Using your tabulators. That carries. So we move to our standing committee reports. Anybody want to pull anything? Councillor Gallo. Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Gallo? Is that right? Councillor Gardner.
Oh, no. Thank you.
No?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And perhaps this isn't the right time. I find this very confusing. Is this something that staff could look at? Does anybody? Okay, maybe I'll raise it under new business.
Okay, we can raise that under new business, and maybe we can look at it because we will deal with our procedural bylaw and as far as how our agenda.
So that'll be part of the procedural bylaw.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Did you want to pull anything?
No. The councillor has already pulled it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve the rest of the items? So basically what about the budget? We have to pull out 7. No. Okay. All right, so a motion to approve those items that are not pulled, including the Budget Committee report, S2. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Using your tabulators. That's approved. So we'll move to R2. Okay, everyone. Before first, can I get someone to move the recommendation, second it, so for discussion. Moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Before I move to any comments or questions, if Mr. Downey just has an explanation to why there were some changes. Mr. Downey?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have made some changes on the report based on some comments that we received from last week's General Committee. Recommendation 1 stands as does Recommendation 2. However, Recommendation 3, some concerns were raised with regards to the provision of options, with regards to the treatment of roads, and so we have reworded the recommendation that staff report back with options to meet the provincial standards with regards to winter pre-treatment without any indication of what costs or type of equipment might be incorporated in order to do that, and that would be presented in the 2020 capital and operating budgets. We also added in recommendation 4 that the Director of Operations and their designate, which is the addition to that, in case that I am not available to call the significant weather event, that a designate would be then empowered to do so. And number 5 stands as it was previously presented.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Any comments or questions from Council? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to go over the report from last week, particularly regarding number 3, recommendation number 3. I don't know whether you have it in front of you, but I'll just go through quickly what I took from it. The previous motion was that the 2020 capital budget and operating budget contained provisions for road and ice pretreatment equipment in the amount of $500,000 and an additional $35,000 operating funds in 2021. In the report, you'll find that the crux behind the issue was that the MMS had put new regulations for us to comply with, basically the pre-treatment of road surface to prevent ice formation. That's in the chart that's in the report. Currently, we are not completely compliant according to the report, and the recommendation is to increase service levels to become completely compliant in the winter of 2021-22. And the impact was to purchase pre-treatment equipment in early 2020 at the estimated cost of $500,000. In the report, it explains what the equipment does. The purpose of the treatment is to apply liquid brine to the bare pavement in advance of a probable winter event to prevent the formation of ice. In the report, it states that in discussion with our N6 neighbors, the majority are not yet in a position to immediately comply with the regulations due to the high cost and need to obtain the specialized equipment. So it's saying that there's a need to obtain the specialized equipment, which is this equipment that shoots up brine prior to a winter event. During the interim period, staff will continue to monitor road conditions, and although not optimum, staff will make efforts to comply with the MMS using our existing road salting equipment, and are confident that this course of action demonstrates due diligence by the corporation in meeting the MMS where practical, based on our best efforts to comply. So that's where I was a little bit confused. I had read that that we need to, in order to comply, we need to buy this equipment. And that last statement says that we are going to try to comply by using our own equipment. So generally speaking, if one is reading this report, you would think that in order to comply, we need this specialized equipment that costs $500,000 and $35,000 a year for operating. So I thought I'd take a look at the regulations and read them, and I'll go through them with you. Section 5, ice formation on roadways and icy roadways. Number 151, the standard for the prevention of ice formation on roadways is doing the following in the 24-hour period preceding an alleged formation of ice on a roadway. Number 1, monitor the weather in accordance with Section 1. 3.1, patrol in accordance with Section 3. And number 3, if the municipality deems, as a result of its activities under paragraph 1 or 2, monitor and patrol, that there is a substantial probability of ice forming on a roadway, treat the roadway. to prevent ice formation within the set time set out in Table 1 to this section, starting from the time the municipality determines it is appropriate time to deploy resources for that purpose. So basically, we go through steps, monitor, patrol, identify if there's a substantial probability of ice formation on the roadway, and then we treat the roadway. According to the report, we would treat the roadway with this specialized equipment. Item number 4 on the regulation says, for the purposes of this section, treating the roadway means applying material to the roadway, including but not limited to salt, sand, or a combination of salt and sand. And this is where I guess I had a problem, because the report does not tell me that I have an option to treat the roadway with salt, sand, or a combination of both of those. The report, as I've read to you, tells me that I have one option, and that is to buy this specialized equipment and put it within the budget and spend $500,000, and additionally, I can go on my second round.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson?
Just wanted to make a comment. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation around the Windrow program, and while most of the focus has been on the cost of it, I just wanted to make a comment really that while cost is certainly a factor, I think the expectations of the public is even more so. I was able to find some information that speaks to Vaughan and what they've been doing, and this comes out of a town report and talks about staff report that there are issues with the program as with any winter maintenance operation. The introduction of the program has created a high level of service expectation, resulting in a marked increase in the number of complaints received. In addition, the blade attachment used to clear the windrow has been reported to cause damage to residential frontages, including driveway aprons, curbing, landscaping, headwalls, culverts, and boulevards. Also, the program interferes with garbage and recycling pickup and is greatly hindered by parked vehicles. And so while absolutely the cost is a factor, so too is the expectation. And part of it is driven by the fact that in some of these communities that do it, it's a 16-hour window, and that drives a lot of the complaint process. And so, I'm glad that the recommendation is not to proceed. But I certainly think that while some of the conversations around the cost, it should also be about the service levels.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Aurora's been or people in Aurora have been talking about windrow removal for so many years. So I was going to suggest that we do it for 1 year as a pilot project. Now, after just hearing Councillor Thompson, maybe that's not such a good idea, but I definitely think that through communications, we need to be very clear why we're not doing it. Because, I mean, it's really not that much money on the tax bill. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, the amount of money that was quoted, I'm assuming that included, that was just on homes. Like, we're not putting condos and apartments into the mix.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we weren't looking at condos. We weren't looking at private driveways, but we were looking at public. Or excuse me, we weren't looking at condos, and
right.
But if you were on a public access, so we're looking at private residents primarily.
I think really what I mean, thank you again through Mr. Mayor, is that the people who lived in condos or multi-unit dwellings would not be paying for the service for the whole town?
Mr. Downey?
That's correct. We
Okay.
would not be clearing windrows on private roads.
Okay.
So if you lived in a condo, we wouldn't be going into the condo and clearing out those windrows.
And you wouldn't be paying for it?
Correct.
Thank you. I don't know. I think if we can be very clear in our communication as to why we're not doing it, I'm okay with that. But for council, finally, I mean,
Okay.
here we are again, and so many people in town think that this would be a good idea. We need to educate them why it wouldn't.
And Councillor Gardner, and I think there might be some confusion before, Mr. Downey, before you answer. I think I'm on the same page. Were you asking whether if we're not plowing those condos, or would they be paying within their tax rate?
Yes.
Is that what you're, no, they would be paying within their tax rate?
Yes, they would.
Yes.
Yeah, so that,
Every taxpayer would be paying a rate whether they got the service or not.
Councilor Gardner?
so do you have any, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, that does not seem fair to me. So do you have any idea how much it would cost if we didn't include those residences that wouldn't require the service? We're now talking about a lot more money.
I'm going to let our CAO jump in on this one.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe that, I was just checking with the acting treasurer, I don't believe that the tax legislation would be allowed to separate those. At least it would be very difficult to separate residents from condo owners, for example, on the residential tax roll. You'd have to create an area-specific charge, and your area-specific would be down to individual driveways. So it would pretty much be impossible to separate that charge for just people that have a regular driveway as opposed to condo owners.
So,
Councilor Bernard?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would have to go out in the communications as well, why council has decided against it. And there would be a lot of people who would think it would be unfair to charge people who weren't using the service.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Humphreys?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, like Councillor Gartner mentioned, I'm just speaking to the Windrow. Since I've been on council, residents have asked us to investigate. It looks a little cost prohibitive. I mean, over in the large picture, $1.5 million across residents may not be so much, but I think we should really learn from other municipalities. I know that the City of Toronto used to do it years ago, but the cost for maintaining the vehicles starts to really exceed and causes a lot of issues. But I love the trial, maybe perhaps a trial of that, a trial pilot. We can talk about maybe during the budget discussions. If there's some sort of, some way we can do a bit of a trial and see how residents feel and get feedback from that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Thank you, Councilor Humphreys. Councilor Gallo, did you want to go? Or? Well, Councilor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be a through you to the clerk, would it be a reconsideration if we wanted to even discuss it during budget?
Mr. Clerk, would this be a reconsideration if this was passed and then we wanted to discuss this during budget as a pilot?
I don't think so, because it's a different kind of thing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion's pretty clear that the town of Aurora not proceed, so I think anything within the next 6 months would be contrary to the procedural bylaws reconsideration.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilor Gardner?
Right, that's what I thought. I don't know, maybe we just need to do a referendum on this for next year. I mean, I think the public needs to be educated as to why council, after so much time and research, why council has not made the decision to help them with the windrows. And the other thing I'd like to say, and I don't want to malign anybody personally, but when you put forward a report and it shows one of those snowplows that has the drop wing to clear the windrows, that might be giving people the wrong impression. And actually it gave me the wrong impression because I thought that's what we were talking about. And I think that's the only solution to this problem, is to have that kind of equipment. And that would be very expensive because of the slowness of the process, as was said. So, I mean, maybe we just need to keep educating and put it to the public at some point. They are our public. They've been talking about this for so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Seeing no one else, I'll go back to Councilor Gallo for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to summarize, it's clear from my reading of the report, and I suspect any rational person that the recommendation is to purchase this equipment in order to comply, and in fact that is not true. And I'm disappointed in that. Perhaps it is the best way to do it, and that may very well be the case. but it certainly, according to the regulations, is not the only way to do it. And that is the only thing we were told in the report. And it's extremely disappointing to have read that. And I suspect that's why we have a revised, which is somewhat awkward. We can just drop a new motion in front of us and not have much of a discussion and change the recommendation. But we've changed the recommendation that basically report back to council at the 2020 capital budget. To me, quite frankly, that doesn't go far enough, because as far as I'm concerned, the reports that are before us and are in our archives are the public record. And in my view, the public record is not accurate. And Mr. Clerk, don't know how to deal with this procedurally, but I want this report removed and a new report generated. This is inaccurate, and it should not be part of our public record. So I'm looking for assistance from you.
Mr. Clark?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Might need a motion from council, maybe in new business. I'm not sure how to deal with it at this very moment, but maybe a motion from council in new business that the report be updated with the new information and replaced online. That might suffice. But in terms of at this very moment, I don't think there's a mechanism to deal with changing the report.
Mr. Clerk, to satisfy the councillor's request, would it be possible to table this item and then generate a new report that could come to our next council meeting? And I'm looking at the councillor, and would that satisfy what you're looking for?
What I'm trying to accomplish is that this should not be part of the public record, because it is not accurate. And I don't know how to deal with that, because retroactively, I mean, it's already part of the public record. But we need to deal with it, and I'm not happy with what's before me, and I'm quite honestly not sure how to fix that.
Well, Councillor, I think that we can all appreciate the fact that you're not happy with this, and I think all of us around the table would agree that when the reports come to us, we want them to be accurate, and we want to see them with the best possible information for us to make a decision. But I think that now that this has been on an agenda, there's how do you take that back? And I agree with you. So I think that the best way for us to move forward to get a full report, new report that is generated with the information that's accurate that you're requesting, is to table this and then have a new report come to us at the next meeting and for us to vote on, and then that would be on the agenda. Or we can refer this back to staff to come back with a new report generated to us.
I'm happy to refer back to staff. I'm happy to take direction from whomever in an effort to fix this.
That's what I would suggest. It would be the cleanest and simplest way to do it, is to
I'll
refer back to staff.
I'll put a motion to refer this back to staff.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions to the referral? Councillor Thompson.
I guess I'd just perhaps get a better understanding. Like, I would be comfortable, as per the suggestion from the clerk, that the online editions be amended. So in future, if anybody would research or to call up the reports, it would show that these were updated and revised with the changes in the recommendations. If Councillor Gallo is concerned that members of the public didn't see this part and want a second opportunity to come out and speak to it, fine, I'm happy to support it. But if it's really from what I'm hearing about the public record, then that's really a matter of searching and finding reports. If we just clean up the report and replace the GC edition as well as the council edition with the revised one, if that's satisfactory to me, that's the simpler matter. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner.
If we did do that, Mr. Mayor, then I think we would have to have a note on the report. We would have to have a note on the report that what was issued previously was incorrect, because people could have already looked at this, and then they come back and they see another a corrected report. It's not proper.
Councillor Gardner, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that we refer many many reports back to staff because we found something inaccurate or we saw something wrong with it. And so I don't think that there's any issue with referring something back to staff where it would look improper.
Okay, so we wouldn't be taking it off the public record? It would stay on the public record?
There's no way to remove an agenda item off that was previously on a previous agenda to ultimately remove it from that agenda or from those minutes. It's going to be there forever.
Well, thank you, but I think there needs to be some kind of notation to refer to something else to see the updated report or something.
Well, I think the comments stand from the councillor.
The other thing is, my understanding is that you can't table something to be brought back at a certain date.
So we're not tabling it now.
No, but you said to table to be brought back at the next meeting, and we've done that a few times, but our procedural bylaw doesn't allow us to say a date.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to also remind everybody, though, that a question was asked at the last meeting and the situation was clarified. So for a matter of public record, that was asked and clarified. And I think this is more a case of the report not being clear as opposed to being wrong. And I've admitted to that in the conversations I've had with the councillor and with the mayor on the report. So I just want to clarify that it's not that this has suddenly come to light. The question was asked and it was answered that there was flexibility, and the revised motion also reflects that flexibility for other options. So,
thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Gallo.
And I respect that opinion. I guess my perspective is what's written in a report is public record, not what's said in a microphone to clarify questions.
All those in favor using the tabulator? That carries. So we're moving to R1, 2019 Capital Investment Program. We have a small presentation from Mr. Gardner. How much time do you need, Jason? Sounds good. We'll give you a 15. It's all right. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm here today to introduce to you our 2019 capital budget and the contents in association to that. The main pieces that we'll be looking at throughout this year's capital process is the new strategic asset management policy, an updated asset management plan, a 10-year capital investment plan, and our detailed capital budget for 2019. Pretty cool. Our goal for tonight's meeting is not to make any decisions or approvals, but rather to kind of set the stage for our upcoming capital budget meeting on February the 2nd. Tonight, in your capital binders, you will be receiving the new strategic asset management policy, which is a new requirement of provincial legislation. Regulation rather. You will shortly be receiving the updated asset management plan. We've run into some publishing challenges with the asset management plan. We'll provide that to you as soon as we figure those publishing issues out. But your binders will certainly include tonight the new capital asset management policy, an updated 10-year capital investment plan, as well as the 2019 capital budget and all the detailed capital pages. I thought I'd start by talking about some of our accomplishments for this year. Over the course of this past year, we've achieved another 10-year capital investment plan. This is the one that'll be in your capital binder. It's valued at a total value of $242 million. We've continued to strengthen our cash to capital contributions to continue to improve our reserves associated with the sustainability of our capital assets. We've also ensured the continued alignment with the town's capital asset management plan. We've strived to maximize the town's access to available grant monies, as well as the FAC was successful in completing detailed reviews of all departmental operating budgets over the course of the previous term, which was a significant accomplishment. Thought I'd give you a little bit of financial context. As you can tell from these couple of stats, our contributions to in support of sustainability of capital assets has increased, which is good. We're continuing to try to increase that as our assets age. The cost of maintaining them goes up, as well as the repair and replacement costs grow. The other important little tidbit you see here relates to the percentage of amortization that we're actually contributing back. So this gives you an indication of how fast our assets are deteriorating versus how fast we're putting money back into the reserves to replenish those assets. So our goal is to reach 100%. As you can see here, we're continuing to move towards that target, which is definitely good news. This illustration here gives you an idea as to the success of the town in ensuring a consistent increase to contributions in support of asset sustainability, but a continued increase in a very controlled fashion. So as you can see here, the increases are very controlled and not having a dramatic impact in any year. So we've done a good job for the past, roughly 8 years or so there. This chart here is an illustration of the age of our assets. As you can tell here, our assets are generally relatively young. So the green represents the remaining useful life of our assets. What this generally will indicate to us is our current repair and replacement costs are relatively minor in the context of our total asset value. But as our assets reach the ends of their useful life, their costs of repair and replacement will grow. So now's the time to start building up our reserves in preparation for those increasing R&R costs. This here is an illustration of our existing owned assets and what are the main components of those assets. Our overall value of our assets are up from the previous year, 2016 to 2017. And you'll see the largest proportion of our assets are actually underground. They're out of sight. These are the main assets that manage our water, wastewater, and stormwater. This is a quick snapshot of our estimated reserve balances at the end of 2018 and what are the main areas in regards to those types of reserves. I should just mention you'll find a detailed listing of this reserve balance within your capital binders. So another key component of your binders will be the 10-year capital plan, which we've been at for quite some time. So we've renewed that plan for another 10 years. The current 2018 plan contains 519 projects at a total value of $285.8 million. Of those 519 projects, 356 relate to repair and replacement, representing 48% of the spend. 99 of those projects relate to growth and new projects, about 50% of the spend. 64 of those projects are studies and other in support of the town's business, about 2% of the total planned spend. This here is a picture of our repair and replacement program over the next 10 years. As you can see here, by the end of that 10-year period, we are able to achieve a ending reserve balance of roughly equal to our average annual need over that 10-year period, which is halfway to our desire. Our current desired target would be 2 times the average annual need over that 10-year period. So we're halfway there. We're in the black, so that's certainly positive, and we'll continue to move towards that 2 times target. The other piece I'd like to illustrate here, this previous one is based upon our continued controlled increases to our contributions to reserves. Should we stop continuing with the strategy of controlled increases to those reserves, this is what it would look like. So quite clearly, it's important we continue to increase our contributions to reserves, or we won't be able to keep up with our assets deterioration. So it's important to continue with our current strategy of increasing contribution to reserve. In terms of our 2019 capital budget, staff are proposing a total capital budget of $61.6 million for 2019, consisting of $10.8 million for R&R, $49.6 million for growth and new, and $1.2 million for studies and other. I should mention to you that the growth and new proposed budget there includes 2 placeholder budgets relating to the proposed SARC additions, the gymnasium, as well as the redevelopment of Library Square. In both these instances, those are simply meant to be placeholders, which will be subject to change as staff bring future reports to council. This is a chart that gives you an idea of the key drivers of our repair and replacement program. As you can see, the biggest drivers relate to roads and related infrastructure repair and replacement, water and wastewater and stormwater, and there's some facility work in there as well. In terms of the growth and new, as I mentioned, the big 2 pieces are the placeholders that we've inserted for the Library Square development, as well as the SARC expansion. As I mentioned, those are subject to change with further reports back to council in terms of the value of those projects, as well as their funding sources. That'll all be clarified in future reports to council. In terms of next steps, you will receive your binders, with the exception of the asset management plan, which we'll get to as soon as we can. And we ask that you prepare for the February 2nd Budget Committee meeting. The main things we'll be looking for at that February 2nd meeting relate to your review and approval of our new strategic asset management policy. As I mentioned, it's a requirement of the provincial asset management regulation for municipalities. We'll be asking for your review and approval of our asset management plan, which is due for a complete review and approval by council, as per our best practice of renewing that at the beginning of each council term. We will also be seeking your approval and review of the 2019 detailed capital budget, of course. And finally, we'll be taking a look at the 10-year capital investment plan to get a better understanding what's coming there in the future. Finally, we would encourage you to ask any questions that you might have prior to our budget committee meeting. Hopefully we can get all those questions answered ahead of time for you. And the main goal of the budget committee is to produce a recommendation for council's ultimate approval on the February 28th, I believe it is. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Any questions for Mr. Gardner? Councillor Gardner.
No relation.
I know.
Thank you, Jason, for your work. I'm not clear. Under growth and new, you said money is being put aside as a placeholder for Library Square and a possible expansion of the SARC. So with Library Square, the money for that, I believe, is coming from the hydro funds, not from...
Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, at this juncture, as I mentioned, the funding sources have not been confirmed.
Okay.
So I think the funding, how much of the hydro funds can be used, I think is still to be determined if it'll be used. I think as part of future reports to council, staff will recommend a funding strategy for Library Square. At this juncture, we're not clear what the funding source is going to be for that project.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Could I ask how much money has been put in that budget?
Mr. Gardner.
Currently, it's a placeholder for $35 million has been put in the budget.
Thank you.
Councillor.
And with respect to the SARC, because it is growth and new, would most of that be paid for by development charge funds?
Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, in that instance, I believe that's true, yes.
But we have a placeholder for whatever is not covered by DCs.
Well, the placeholders for the full project, I think there's some further reports to come back on options, I believe, for council in terms of that one. And at that same time, we'll clarify funding sources for that as well.
Thank you. Councillor.
Maybe I'm not understanding this properly, but I didn't think. Well, I'll you know what? I'll ask the question offline because I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, thank you.
So, can I get a motion moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Humphreys? Any comments or questions? Seeing none, everyone vote using your tabulators, please. That carries. Next, we have no motions. We have the regional report. Okay, a motion to receive the regional report. Moved by Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions on the regional report? Seeing none, all those in favor using your tabulator. That carries. New business. I am going to start to my left. Nothing? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through you to our CEO, Mr. Nadarozny. Budget time's approaching, and we had talked last term about developing some principles or guidelines with respect to granting and sponsorship dollars that we provide third-party organizations and developing some sort of framework around it so that it's sort of consistent. Some of the conversation at the time was to sort of model it after the work that we did on the cultural center agreement in terms of posting budgets and financials and information on those organizations' website. Do you know when that report may be coming to this council, and do you foresee it happening while we're discussing the budget?
Mr. Sale?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have put in place a system where contracts or agreements are now signed for any of these grants, which was not the practice in the past. And in those agreements, we spell out some of the things that you're referring to in terms of reporting and transparency and those kinds of things. Our intention was to bring the essence of what those agreements are to the FAC committee first and have them take a look at it to make sure that it's thorough enough for the FAC committee, and then we could certainly bring an information report to council showing what kinds of commitments we're asking from groups that are applying for money.
Councillor Thompson?
Great, and I'll just speak on behalf of myself. I just thought that if that information wasn't going to be sort of available prior to the conclusion of the budget, that perhaps it's a good idea to give the various organizations just a little heads up that this is something that council will be looking at in 2019, and it's still to be determined what the final outcome will be and how it'll be, or just gives them more of a head start to start working on it. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gallo, you said you had something there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I realize it just happened last night, but I'm curious to see if staff have put any thought towards any communication regarding last night's meeting and the decision of council, or how we're going to be, as a municipality, addressing the decision we made last night.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did send out a media release this afternoon, and social media posts went out last night as soon as the decision was made within minutes.
Councillor Gallo?
Just in terms of next steps and what the next steps would be.
And I guess I'll speak to, I guess we have to wait to see what happens with, if anyone with a license decides to pick Aurora to, use it as a home for their retail outlet. If not, then we don't know any much more than that. So
We'll
at
just
this
sit and
time,
wait.
yeah, it's a more wait and see at this time, I think, unless anyone else has some more information. Mr. Saria? No? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner?
Mr. Mayor, could you come back to me, please?
Sure. Councillor Kemp? No? Councillor Humphreys?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is appropriate under new business or not, but I'll call it out anyways. We had a request for a special fundraising event that's being held on February the 18th at the ACC in regards to a local resident who had a serious spinal injury. And they're going to be doing a full day event, free family skate, silent auction, and they've approached the town to see if there was a grant to help alleviate the fees for the rental. And it's $2,500, lots of money for our, when you're trying to fundraise, it's hard to kind of close that gap. And I know we're sticklers for not, we don't like to waive costs, right? So I just wondered, is there any way that, if we feel it's appropriate around the table, do we have anything in the council contingency? Do we even have that? Did we carry over? Because I think it'd be great for us to be able to help this group out. It's just for local residents from Aurora, trying to put this on. Again, the event will be on February the 18th. The cost is $2,500. I believe perhaps Robin may have been, Ms. McDougall may have been contacted. But again, we don't really have an avenue for this. So it's very special. Through you, Mr. Mayor, can we ask for investigation on this?
Councillor Humphreys, first I guess our CEO can investigate it if I see him is nodding his head, but maybe also if just for clarification, Mr. Gardner, do you just off the top of your head, do you know what the council contingency is? How much is in there?
I believe the current starting point for 2019 is a $50,000 budget.
Okay.
Right now, it's at about $30,000.
That's
And I guess just to clarify, even for myself, there, if we were to use this now, would it be coming out of the previous, or would it be coming out of the new?
It would be the new year now.
Okay, so it'd be coming out of the 50, not
Yep.
the 30.
Correct.
Thank you. So, Councillor Humphreys, how about we just leave it with our CEO? He's going to look into it, see what kind of options we can have, and maybe bring it back to us so we can explore those options. Is that, Mr. CEO?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm not familiar with, staff do have some discretion with limits, and I'm not sure if this might exceed the limits. So perhaps a motion that directs council to use the contingency if another means can't be found, then I wouldn't have to, because the timing is very short. So
it's very short. That's what I'm worried about.
Something that allows us to look at that as an option would be helpful in case it's beyond our authority to just sign off on.
Councillor, if you want to put something on the floor.
Absolutely. And before I do that, just a quick one. So the $30,000 is left over last year's contingency budget, right? Just to clarify, or is that not? I just want to understand that. No.
Councillor, sorry. I see Gardner, I think Councillor, sorry. Mr. Gardner?
No, this is brand new budget.
Brand new budget. Did we use up last year's through you, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, Mr. Gardner.
My apologies. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we did use the full amount.
We used every penny. Okay. Yeah. Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put a motion forward that that staff investigate an opportunity to fund this fundraiser. It's a local individual, serious spinal cord injury that they're trying to do fundraiser for in our local arena. The cost is $2,500 to rent. We don't get these very often. Again, it's, and I'd like to know if staff can look into that. And if we don't have anywhere we can pull this money, can we go to council?
So what's the motion?
To go to council contingency.
So for staff to investigate
and if
needed to use the council contingency.
Right, because I know we have a grant program, and I believe it's only $1,000 limit.
Up to $2,500.
But up to $2,500, yes.
Can I get someone to second that? Councillor Gartner for discussion. What? Councillor Thompson?
And I would have to go back to the emails, but I thought that I did read in one of the emails that they did speak with Ms. McDougall. They were looking at the Community Grant Avenue, which is the typical path we ask them to pursue, but I thought I had read that they don't qualify for whatever aspect, and I don't know all the details. So I think that's why they're sort of stuck in the middle and why they've reached out to council. And so in the past, when people haven't qualified or it's not sufficient, they've come and delegated council, and then we've dealt with it. So, you know, I don't know if staff can send around a memo or just give a little bit more information. I'm happy to, you know, support the motion, but I believe that they don't qualify for the community grant aspect.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gartner.
I was asking for time because I wanted to check the date of this fundraiser. I also think, I mean, we do not have something in place, but we've been here before with other things, and I think we need to have a policy. And as this money would be owed to the town, they could take a little bit of time to pay it while we were in the process of putting something in place, because I don't think it can be ad hoc. I think we should try and help them, but I think we should try and help them by forming a policy that they can fall under. Mm-hmm. So would you consider adjusting your motion to the CAO that they bring forward to our next our next general committee meeting, a policy prototype that could cover this unexpected situation? Is that okay, Mr. Clerk? Or does it not require?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think next meeting might be a little bit unrealistic at this point, and then we're projecting that the next agenda is going to be rather large too. I'm not saying we can't bring something forward in the future, but maybe just not in February.
Well, it would have to be in February. I don't know if we can, I mean, I want to grant money, but I don't know, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. CAO, can we do it as a one-time effort and then put a policy in place to govern these unexpected situations that really deserve our community attention?
Mr. CAO?
To you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we can do whatever the will of council is tonight in terms of a one-time. In terms of a policy, it gets rather difficult to anticipate every kind of scenario and which ones would be deemed to be council to be worthy of a contribution of either taxpayer money or waiving of fees when it's in this range. Staff do have certain authority for smaller situations. You'll recall a couple of years ago, some of you will recall that we had a poor girl here asking for a waiving of a fee to plug in her amplifier at the park, and that was a procedural issue that left. We had no other choice but to bring that sort of thing to council. We've eliminated those kinds of things, and staff can now apply some discretion and waive those fees. When it gets up to this amount, I think it gets difficult to define by policy which ones you're in favor of staff just doing without bringing to council, but we can take a stab at it for sure.
Councillor Garner?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Maybe a small fund that we set up, just like we had an arts and culture fund, just set it up as a community compassion fund and put some of the taxpayers' money in it. Maybe something very small. Maybe we put in $5,000, and then I can't speak really for the taxpayers, but I would think that that would be only a few cents if we were looking at it as a form of a tax on a tax bill, and I think the community would most likely support spending money on that. But it makes me uncomfortable to do it without some sort of governing policy. So if you could try, Mr. CAO, I would appreciate that.
Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think our existing ability to write off these amounts might actually work. It's just that this is coming as a surprise. I hadn't heard of this before, so I didn't have a chance to refer to it and see where our authority exists. My normal course for something like this large, if it is within my authority to sign off on this, would be to first communicate with the mayor that I'm considering it, and perhaps if it was something that we weren't sure I should be doing, I would probably contact council just to let them know that the request had come in, and I'm just thinking of moving with it. So we do have a bit of an informal process that way, but I think I also may have a delegated authority to look after these kinds of amounts already for the kinds of situations that you're talking about.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. But I definitely think before you would do that, that council would certainly be in the loop of what was being asked. Which contradicts
Through you, Mr.
delegated.
Mayor. Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You either delegate the authority to staff to make that judgment call, or it comes back to council. So, that kind of sort of grayness doesn't usually serve staff well, because you could take issue with any discretionary decision that staff make.
Councillor Gardner?
Okay, well, perhaps in this case, what we should have done, I think all of council received this. What we should have done probably was send it to you, and then you might have been more prepared for tonight. I'd just like to say that this is happening on Family Day, February the 18th, at the Aurora Community Center. It starts at 9:30. There's a hockey tournament until 4. Then there's a family skate 4 to 5. Then there's a silent auction 5 to 7. They're looking for donations to their silent auction. They have a GoFundMe fund. So too much information, but if you want to know more, you could get in touch with a member of council.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys?
Just want to finish on that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And just to let you know about the individual, he was born and raised in Aurora. And again, he was self-employed, gave back to the Aurora community. I will absolutely leave it. I forwarded the message to Mr. Sayo. My apologies, I didn't do that. And hopefully we can help this group out. And that's great. Just two more things.
Are you done with this motion?
I'm done with this motion. Yeah, I'm done with
Speaking
this
to
motion. I'm
we
sorry.
need to
Yeah,
vote
sorry.
on it. Councillor Gardner, second time.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but just to add this, unfortunately, this gentleman is paralyzed from the neck down from a sporting accident, and he does have a family. So it's a pretty serious situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Call the vote using your tabulators. That carries. Councillor Humphreys, you have more? Mm-hmm.
Councillor Gallo touched on this, and I know that last night we opted in as a community for cannabis retail sale. On our website, will we be developing just an information section, not just the highlights of what's happened, but an information section, section on that, and any latest information we continue to upload onto our website? Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith, I believe that we do have a section, but I think it's being updated, but I think Ms. Mackenzie Smith can elaborate a little bit more.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a section on our website currently, which was drafted in consultation with our York Region partners through our communications group, so that we're consistent across the board. So it contains information on resources and public health information, and then obviously we'll be adding additional information on what's happening in Aurora as things develop. Right now, obviously, as we said earlier, we don't have a huge amount of information to share, but we will link to the media release, letting people know that we opted in.
Thank you so much. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland. New business? Public service announcements? Councillor Gilliland? Nope. Councillor Humphreys?
No.
Nope. Councillor Kim? Councillor Gardner?
I didn't catch myself in time for new business. When we put out the information on opting in, are we going to give our reasons? Like, what are we going to say? Through you, Mr. Mayor, what would you suggest that we put out to communications?
Well, I think the reasoning, as Ms. Mackenzie Smith mentioned, that there's been a press release, media release that's gone out. Also, the motion, I think, is pretty self-explanatory as far as why we've opted. Well, you won't have the essence or the detail of why we opted in, but you will have an understanding that we are opting in. And I guess a lot of the information, Ms. Mackenzie Smith, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that will be up on that section of speaking about the cannabis as far as some of the things that are
Okay.
upcoming. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gallo. And you know what? And Councillor, I know you're looking for it, and I was just about to apologize to everyone. I didn't get a chance to give everyone a section, so I am going to read a long list, and I apologize because I don't want to read a long list, but I'm going to have to do that. I wish each of you had your section, but so we'll start off. Actually, do you have any? Okay, thank you. The Skylight Gallery artist for January is Oksana Baksinki. With her exhibit, Exploring Nature, Oksana has created a series of paintings that capture the beauty and majesty of Canadian landscapes, and I encourage everyone to visit the Skylight Gallery this month to see this exciting work. And the exhibit is open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Also, there's a reminder that winter overnight parking restrictions continue to be in effect. The town's bylaw states that cars must be off the road between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. between November 15th and April 15th, and we thank you for your cooperation in keeping the roads free from parked vehicles during the prohibited times. And our priority is to ensure the safe and efficient treatment of roads and removal of snow. Family Day is next month, and with it comes our annual Arctic Adventure at Town Park, which I expect to see every single one of you there. Join us on Monday, February 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for outdoor winter games, skating, weather permitting on that one, mini snow tubing, live entertainment, and professional ice carving displays. It's always a great time and is the perfect way to beat those winter blues and connect with your family and friends for a full day of fun. And then please join me at the annual Mayor's Luncheon presented by the Aurora Chamber of Commerce on Wednesday, February 20th at the Royal Venetian Mansion. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with Aurora's business leaders and discussing economic priorities for the town. And for more details and to register, everyone can visit aurorachamber.on.ca. It is also budget time, as we've discussed, and Council is in the process of carefully reviewing our 2019 budget through a series of public meetings hosted here at the Town Hall. These meetings are open to the public, and I encourage everyone to attend. The schedule is available at Aurora. Hopefully everyone can attend, and not just you, Terry. Thank you. The town's Spring and Summer 2019 program guide is coming out soon. It will be delivered on February 21st in the banner, but you can also check it out online at aurora.ca/rec guide. And the town is now accepting applications for the John West Memorial Leaders of Tomorrow Scholarship Award. The town of Aurora encourages local students entering their first year of full-time post-secondary study to apply for the award, and the scholarship honors students who have contributed to the advancement and overall well-being of Aurora. And the deadline is May 1st to apply. If you want to apply, please visit our www.aurora.ca/leaders of tomorrow. And then I just have one more. Just wanted to mention we had a staff member, Heather Green, is a Town of Aurora municipal bylaw officer for 29 years, who retired on October 31st, 2018. And I just wanted to congratulate her and wish her good luck in her future endeavors. And with that being said, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, confirming bylaw. All bylaws. Yesterday was a long day. Moved by Councillor Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, if you could call bylaw A, D, and E together separately so I could speak to them.
A, D, and E.
Right.
So we can do B and C first?
You could.
Okay, thank you. So we'll put B and C first on the screen. Thank you. Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Gallo. Any comments or questions on these two bylaws? Seeing none, vote using your tabulators, please. That carries. Next, we have bylaws A, D, and E. go. Can I get someone to move that? Moved by Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Comments or questions? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask council's, permission to take under the tree permit fees. This would be operational services, Schedule E, the tree permit fees. The tree permit fees seem to me to be very low. This would be to cut down a tree, which would in fact be to destroy a tree. The fees go from $209.36 for 3 trees, up to $523.26 if a tree is of a certain circumference, greater than 20 centimeters. I would just like to ask council if just this small portion could be sent back to staff. I don't know whose staff it would be, Mr. Downey's staff, just to have another look at this and see if perhaps we should be charging more money than we are. Michael said I can do it.
So, Councillor, we would need a motion to amend.
Thank you. I don't.
Or refer it?
Yeah. A motion to refer Schedule E Operation Services tree permit fees.
Seconder? Councillor Humphreys. So we will be referring bylaws A, D, and E back to staff? No, just A? Oh. So can I ask then, why did we lump in D and E?
I have another question.
So the amendment's to refer A back?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any comments or questions to the referral? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Since we're talking about whether the fees are appropriate, I thought I would ask Mr. Downey how the fees were determined. Through you to Mr. Downey.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to fees, if you recall, we had presented a report to council and identified proposed fees in that report that were based on fees that were similar to other bylaws. It was approved by council, those numbers. So I'm not quite sure whether or not you wish to have those numbers increased by a certain percentage. But we based it on other fees that are being charged by the municipality. So I'm not quite sure what direction you want to go. I understand you want to go up, but I'm not quite sure how far you want to go up and based on what with a council-approved report.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. As a follow-up, so do you look at these fees at an annual basis to confirm that they're still, I guess, the same sort of principle, that they're still in line with those around us? Because reading from the report, it looks like the original report was from 2016.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, we would normally look at that on more like a 5-year basis as opposed to a yearly basis. We do increase fees each year in accordance with direction coming from CAO and the Treasurer on all fees. But we would not be into a review after 2 years on these particular fees.
Thank you, Mr.
In
Downey.
a normal process.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? Councillor, we are referring the tree permit fees within bylaw A back to staff. Councillor Gardner.
I know, we've often left Mr. Downey without direction. So the question would be, could we increase these fees to show that we value, I'm not sure what the words are exactly, but the way these fees show, it doesn't seem to me that we value these trees very much.
Is that a question or a comment? Councillor Gardner?
Honestly, Mr. Mayor, I was caught off guard. I was a little busy with yesterday's meeting and I didn't realize the bylaw was on. And so perhaps I would have done something more in conjunction with staff. But or maybe this can be passed and then it can be looked at again. Maybe that's required, that I make a motion. That the problem is it'll be a reconsideration. Okay, I think I'll just make a motion, and that might make more sense to staff and council.
So you'll pull this.
I'll pull this, and I
referral?
thank Councillor Humphreys for trying to help
Thank
me
you.
with this.
So we'll remove the referral. Thank you. And you wanted to speak to D and E?
The appointment of bylaw enforcement officers, and I could have asked this earlier, but this may be something that the public is interested in. So in D and E, we're using bylaw officers that come from businesses. One's a corporation and one's a I'm sorry, I don't know what it is, but they're not people that we have chosen or we have recruited. They're coming through a company. So my question is simply, do we have control over the actions of these bylaw officers with how they interact with the public? And if there are any issues, does it become our purview to solve them?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we enter into an agreement with these companies, and because their request is that they can provide enforcement on private property. So we provide them with training. We enter into an agreement with them. We do have the ability, if there are issues, to revoke their licenses. So that is a provision that's contained within the agreement. We issue them the tickets, and there is a reconciliation of the parking tickets. We receive the revenue. The benefit for them is that it deals with their parking issues on private property, to which we do not have the resources to enforce on private property.
Thank you. So we're helping private property owners like perhaps condominiums or shopping centers. But if there were any complaints from the public, they would go to us and then we would be able to deal with it.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And we do have several companies. I can tell you that we have not received any complaints.
Very glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. All those in favor? We're using your tabulator. That carries. Confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. All those in favor, using your tabulator. That carries. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Gallo. All those in favor, using your tabulator. Oh, we're doing hands on the adjournments? That's too late. Carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, Council.